Welcome back. I hope you are as excited as I am to talk about these books. I have my favorite pillow and I have my coffee that I made at home. It is a new month and it is a new wrap up, and I am so excited for this video because I feel like I did really well at coming up with the stats for you guys. So let's talk about them, shall we? Okay, so I have my phone here, which has all my notes. February was a really quick month. I actually really did not mind it, to be honest. I read a lot of romances, as you will be able to see, because it is the month of Valentine's Day, and is it really February if you didn't read 1001 romances? I don't think so. Personally, in my opinion, I love Valentine's Day, and so therefore I wanted to celebrate it by reading a bunch of romance novels, and I did the same thing last year when I read a bunch of romance novels for a video, and I have that up on my channel still if you are interested at all. And I read some of my favorite 5-star reads in that video as well. For the month of February, I read 11 books, which breaks down to 6 romances, 1 historical fiction, 2 romantasy, and 2 fantasy. It was a good month, I think, in my opinion. It's not really the best reading month I've ever had. It was a really good reading month, but not the best, because some of the books that I read really pissed me off, and some of the books that I read were okay, and we only had a singular 5 stars. So before I get ahead of myself, so 11 books, 6 romances, 1 historical fiction, 2 romantasy, and 2 fantasy, an average of 4 stars, 4.04 if I'm being really exact, which is really not bad, honestly. If you really think about it, a 4-star month is not bad at all. Let's talk about all the books that I read this month and what my thoughts and opinions and ratings are on them, and if they are published in a video, which most of these, if not all of these, were read for a video. I believe there's only one that I didn't read for a video, but most of these will be in a video if they're not already published. But if they are published and the video is already up, then I will link it down below. But let's get started. After I filmed the wrap up for the January reads, I read P.S. I Hate You by Lauren Connolly. I gave that one a 3.75 star. It's basically the story of this girl whose brother passes away after a battle with cancer, and she gets handed down a thing to do for her brother in a letter that says he wants her and his best friend to spread his ashes in 7 or 8 different states. I don't remember 100%, but she does not want to do that because she had a one-night stand with his best friend forever ago, and it ended really badly, and now he's married and she does not want to spend more time with him than she has to, but now she has to because they have to go to 7 different states together. It takes place over 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, where they meet every few months here and there and they spread the ashes. It was an okay book. I think it was really deep, and it handled grief really well because the main character basically doesn't cry about her brother passing away because she's just not there mentally, I guess. I thought it handled everything so well and it handled the topic so beautifully, but the only problem with it that I had was the fact that the spice came out of nowhere, and I felt like had it been me who's just lost my brother, like God forbid, I don't think I would have been really concerned in what the best friend thinks of me, whether we had a one-night stand or not, which obviously that wouldn't happen to me, but like I don't think I would have really cared. But they just jumped into the spice out of nowhere, and it was so much of it for the type of book that it is. Don't get me wrong, in any other romance I'd be like down for it. I don't condemn the spicy scenes in any book, but this one just felt like a little tacky and a little bit out of place. So for that reason, I just really didn't vibe with the characters, and I just felt like it was a little bit rushed in my opinion. Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, which I gave a 4.75 stars. This follows the story of this couple who's been married for years, and they met when they were 14, they got married when they were 17, 18, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 18, 19, something like that. They get married because her mom was diagnosed with ALS, and they want the mother to be there for the wedding, and so they just rush it and they get married. But they are still in love. They're just struggling a little bit because the woman feels like she's losing herself in this marriage, and she doesn't have anything. He's rich, he has a job, he does all these things, he saves all these people, and he knows who he is, but she feels like she's lost herself in this marriage. And something happens in the beginning of the book that basically is a catalyst to them going to this camping retreat with a therapist and a few other couples that are struggling, and we just see them find their way back to each other. Really loved it. Really love Hannah Bonham Young, and like everything that she writes is so beautiful and so gorgeous and so well done. I read Next to You, and this was my second read of hers. And the only reason why I didn't give it a 5-star, and I say this in the video as well, so if you're interested on my full in-depth thoughts, go check that video out. I was so disappointed in the last 50 pages because I felt like it was so out of nowhere that was pulled. I just didn't understand it. Like, I really don't understand why the author pulled that, for the lack of a better word. I felt like there was no need for it. Like, there was genuinely no need for the characters to go through what they went through in the last 50 pages of the book. I felt like because we didn't have a third act breakup, which we didn't need because the characters were in love, we came up with this thing that was going to create some sort of conflict, which we didn't need because conflict was already happening between them from the start of the book, because they didn't know if they wanted to stay together or not, and they were really struggling in the relationship. So I don't really understand the last 50 pages of the book, even though we pulled it back around and everything was fine in the end and it was a happy ending. You can see my reactions to this book like in real time, and I was kind of spiraling because I didn't understand why it was happening. So 4.75 stars. If that hadn't happened, I would have given it a 5 stars, and that would have been my first 5-star of the month, but it didn't happen that way. So I read Spiral, which is a part of the Off the Ice series. This is the second book, and this is by Balcabra, which I gave to 4.25 stars. This follows the story of this guy who is a hockey player, and he's the rookie in this team where he's not scoring any goals, but he's great at assists, and it's becoming sort of a joke. His life is basically always on the news, and he's starting to get questioned by his team and the management specifically of his team about why he's always on the news with a different girl. He's really struggling. And then we follow Sage, who is a ballerina, and she is struggling because she wants to get a part in any ballet ever, but she's not getting any because she doesn't have any social media following, and that's how people are getting picked. That's how ballerinas are being picked. She's struggling and she needs a social media following, and he needs people to get off his back. So they decide to fake date, because if they fake date and he has a girlfriend, technically, then the media will leave him alone because the interest and the intrigue won't be there anymore, and she'll get a social media following because everybody will think that she's his girlfriend, and so they'll want to know more about her and they follow her. So it's a win-win situation. Fake dating, forced proximity. He basically saves her over and over again. I will say that I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed Collide, the first book in the series, because I felt like Collide was well done and full of a lot more depth than this one. This one felt like a little bit more light and funny and cute, even though we dealt with really heavy topics. Not a 5-star read, but also a really cute romance. I love the cover. I love a ballerina hockey player romance because I feel like I love when opposites attract, and it's just a really cute book. If you're looking for a romance, I think it's worthy of your read. The Woman by Kristen Hanna. I gave that one a 3.75 stars, and I feel like that was really generous of me because it really pissed me off. This book really pissed me off. It was like, why? Why are we doing all these things? This is a historical fiction novel following this girl who lives in a period of time where the Vietnam War is happening. Her brother gets deployed to Vietnam, and because she loves him and she adores him and she does not want to be without him, she decides to join. She decides to be a nurse in Vietnam, and so she gets deployed and her brother passes away, so then she's just left alone to her own devices to try to find her way through everything. This book was such a mess. It was such a mess. It pissed me off from the very beginning to the very end. It was so good in the beginning because I love Kristen Hanna, and usually I really enjoy her writing. I enjoy a historical fiction novel, specifically if it's set in a wartime. I feel like I love a good wartime story. The only problem with this one was the main character was such a hot mess, and I know that the author was trying to show how much war affects people. I get that. I understand where it was coming from, but I feel like this one was so grossly handled that it pissed me off. The video for this book will not be up for a couple more weeks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want my full depth thoughts and opinions on this, where I go off and rant about it for like 20 minutes, then I would wait and watch that video. I will link it down below after it goes public. I really did not understand why the main character was such a hot mess. She has the worst decision making, the worst moral compass, the worst thought process. I just didn't understand her decision making after she came home from Vietnam. I understand why she was the way that she was. Obviously, what she went through wasn't little. Like, it's a war, and she saw basically the worst of it because people would come in and she would have to fix them. And you get to see her grow from this shy, scared girl to this woman who has gone through the worst of the worst. and she comes home and people are not liking anybody that was in the Vietnam War, and it was really interesting. The worst part is that it was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it in the beginning, and that was the worst part because I really wanted to like the rest of it. I would have given it 5 stars had it not headed where it headed, and I feel like I can't really say much about why I am so frustrated with it because I don't want to spoil it for you. My god, just thinking about it gets my blood boiling. And it's so frustrating because this could have been a 5-star read. Instead, it decided to piss me off. The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith, and I gave that one a 4-star, and I really liked it. This one felt like going back in time and reading like my very first romantasy book. That's the feeling that it gave me. It's following this girl whose sister goes missing, if I'm not mistaken, and she lives in this world where there are fae and there's a fae queen, and it's compared to the selection, Bridgerton. I would like to also add The Cruel Prince as well because there's fae involved, and these types of fae are the same type of fae that I feel like were shown in the Cruel Prince series, and this one was so good. It gave all the vibes. She's about to go and show herself as a part of the season. It's revealed that the fae prince, is looking for a wife, and so now they have to compete, and there's the selection part of it. They have to compete to win his hand in marriage, and whoever marries him will be the fae queen. It was really good. I'm really explaining it very, very poorly because I don't have any brain cells right now, but it gave like everything old school romantasy fantasy books gave. I really liked the selection part of it. I really liked the fantasy world. I really liked our main character. I still don't know if this is a series. Goodreads says it's not a series, but I'm not understanding because of the way that it ended. It feels like it should have been a series, or should be at least a trilogy, because it's giving me that vibe, and if it were, then I'd be the first person in line to try to get the next book in the series because I really adored the way that this was written. It made me feel like I was back to when I first started reading and when I first read ACOTAR and Shatter Me and all these books that I adore now. So excellent. It was so good. Young adult, so it's clean. There's not really any crazy spicy scenes from what I remember. 4 stars. Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, which I gave to a 4.5 stars. This was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I love Ali Hazelwood. I love everything that she writes. I wouldn't say that. I don't love everything that she writes, but I do like it. I think she is one of the most talented romance authors. I think she knows what she's doing, and she knows her audience, and she knows who she's writing for, and her voice is very distinct and very clear. Now, Deep End was completely different from anything she's ever released, and I don't know how to explain it other than to tell you to read the content warnings because it is very mature, very spicy, very steamy. This is a college sports romance following a diver and a swimmer, if I'm remembering correctly. My full thoughts and opinions are in my most anticipated reads video, which I will link down below as well. Like I said, I really liked this book. It was really, really good. It was not a 5-star, which was a little bit of a disappointment because I really expected it to be a 5-star, but this one just felt like it was a little, I don't know. I expected something like that will take me by shock, kind of. When I first read Bride, I really was so shocked, but in the best way possible. I loved Bride, and then I read Not in Love, and that one was like a flop for me. I really didn't love it all that much. And reading this one kind of felt like in the in-between between Bride and Not in Love. This one felt very spicy, very steamy. I think this might be the spiciest she's ever written, which I knew was coming because if you read Not in Love, then you can kind of see her dipping her toes into the type of spice that she goes into in this book. I go in with caution and like make your mind up from there because it's a lot. There's a lot going on and it's really good. I think the conflict was written really well, and I just didn't like how the main character kept bringing up her best friend over and over and over again throughout the book, and like anything that would happen between her and the main character and the main love interest, she would bring up her best friend, and I just really didn't vibe with that. I honestly was kind of getting annoyed by it. I don't know how the guy didn't get annoyed, but I don't know. I was getting really annoyed, and it was driving me kind of crazy that anytime something would happen between them, she would be like, no, but my bestie. Like, I don't care about your bestie. I'm reading this book for you, girl. The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest, which I gave to a 3.5 stars. This is a romance, and it follows this guy and this girl who had a thing when they were in high school, and then they break up. Further down the line, they run into each other again, and they have to pretend to be engaged because she is a famous stylist, and she gets interviewed, and to get back at her ex basically because her ex had cheated on her and moved on, she says that she's engaged to somebody, and she says that she's engaged to her high school sweetheart, and now everybody in her hometown knows that who she's talking about because they saw them dating. They have to pretend now to be engaged, and basically to everybody in her hometown she has to pretend to be engaged, and to everybody in the famous world as well. And I really liked it. I thought that it was so interesting because I don't think I've ever read a book like this. This is a second chance romance, and I don't typically read many of those because I honestly don't really vibe with a second chance romance most of the time. I really like this one though. I think it was so interesting and so well done, and you get to see the main female character and her struggle in the famous world. Also, it's really nice to see her as a high school because it's a dual timeline, so you get to see them in high school in the beginning, I believe, and then you follow them in the present time. And it was really interesting to see her so sure of herself when she's in high school, and she knows exactly what she wants, and she knows that she's going to be a famous stylist. And then we fast forward to her life in the present, and she's actually a famous celebrity stylist. And it was so cool to see her achieve that. And it was such a wholesome, cute romance. I really adored both of the characters, and I really rooted for them to be together because it felt like it was just right person, wrong time. And I really love a romance like that because you just feel it in your chest because you just want these characters to be happy and you want them to be together. And I really just adored the both of them so much, and I adored the world that they were living in, and I really liked them as characters. They felt very realistic and they felt very human. They talked in very like simple terms. Basically, if it sounds like you were talking to your friends. Reading their dialogue sounds like you're talking to your friends, or like you're talking to somebody now. Not like, you know, sometimes when you read dialogue and it's like, nobody would ever speak like this in real life. Like, that's kind of silly. In this book, it felt like very much real life. And I really liked it for that because it felt very immersive, and it made me really care for the story and feel like these characters were my friends, and I really liked it for that. Then I read The Launch Day by Annabelle Slater, which I gave to a 3.5 stars. This one follows these two people working at two different dating apps under the same company. The company wants to launch a new dating app that has the expertise of both of the dating apps, and so they assign these two rivals, basically enemies-ish, friends to enemies, on this dating app to test it out and everything. And they have to go on these date packages because that's the allure of the new app, is that it has date packages that will match people. If you swipe on the specific date, it'll match you with the person who swiped for the same date package. I think it's so interesting and so fascinating. I really liked reading the behind the scenes stuff of a dating app because I think it's so cool, and I think the idea of that specific dating app is so interesting, and I would love to see somebody make it and see if it actually works. So basically it's a friends to enemies to lovers ish, because they are friends in the beginning, and then something happens where they become enemies, and then later after that, after working on the dating app, they become lovers. And it's really good. Really liked it. I will say that it just felt like it felt like a copy of The Hating Game. So if you've read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, then I don't think you need to read this book. I think had I read this one without The Hating Game in my mind, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but it just felt like very familiar, like something I've read before. Unfortunately, it wasn't anything like out of the ordinary where I feel like I'll be thinking about it for a very long time. The redeeming factor for it in my head is the fact that it was a lot about the dating app and the logistics that go into that, and I really liked it for that. The cool thing is that the author actually worked for a dating app, and so she was writing what she knows, and I thought that made it even more interesting. So if that sounds interesting at all to you, I do recommend it because I do think it's a very well written book. Very cutesy. Even the spicy scene was very wholesome, and there's very little detail in it as well. So yeah, I thought it was really well done, and I really liked it. As far as romances go, I do think it's very cute, and I still found something to enjoy in it. So I think that says a lot about it. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, which I gave to a 3.75 stars. And this one is a fantasy, kind of gothic, kind of horror. And I say horror with the lightest of tones, so don't let that scare you, because I don't like horror either. And I really like this book. I don't know why it's classified as horror. I kind of do see it because it is a lot. I don't know how to explain it, but it's about this girl and this guy. And this girl is Alex C. Harrow. I never really know how to explain her books. Other than to say they're very whimsical. This one is very dark, very gothic, very vibey, very moody. It follows the story of this house that pops up out of nowhere and no one wants to come near it. No one wants to come close to it. It's basically like Boo Radley, like no one wants to be around it. It looks very scary from the outside, and our main character decides to knock on the door to become a cleaner for that house. She gets approached by these people who want the house or want info on the house, and she gets blackmailed by them. The guy who lives in the house does not know that she's giving out the information about the house. It's very, very confusing. It's very, like, you have to read it to know what's going on. It's just vibes. Just vibes. Like, there's plot, but for me, with Alexi Harrow, I'm reading it for the vibes because she really knows how to give a vibe. I read The 6 Deaths of the Saint, which in the video that I filmed for this book, I kept calling it The 10,000 Deaths of the Saint, which is not correct. It's The 6 Deaths of the Saint, which I read by her last year and I absolutely adored. And I also read 10,000 Doors of January, which I didn't like as much. I think Starling House falls between my favorite, which is 6 Deaths of the Saint, and then Starling House second, and then 10,000 Doors of January third. I really liked this book. I think with Alexi Harrow, she's so good at getting across a vibe, and I commend her for it because I feel like it's so difficult to get such a steady and good vibe across in the entire book, but this one did it for me. I really liked it. I gave it 3.75 stars. I don't know if I already said that, but if I didn't, I'm telling you now. I really loved the house itself because it felt like it had its own character, and it was its own character in the book, and I love it when inanimate objects are like, they have personality and they contribute to the plot and to the story. I really liked it. Definitely one of the weirder books I've ever read, but in the best way, I think. Then I listened to Kingdom of the Curse, which is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series trilogy by Karen Maniscalco, which I gave to a 3.75 stars. I really liked this book. This book I can't tell you much about because it is a continuation of the first book of the Kingdom of the Wicked, which follows this girl. She is a witch and her sister gets murdered, and so she wants to get revenge and she summons Prince Wrath. Their story goes from there. I am sure you've heard about this because everybody and their mother seems to have heard about the series. I really like the series, not to the point where I'm giving it 5 stars, but to the point where I really enjoy listening to it on audiobook. I just picked this up randomly because it was one of my series that I want to finish before I start new other series, and this is in my I want to finish all the series that I'm in the middle of video, so I will be finishing it for that. This one I didn't do that for that video because I honestly have been listening to it for the entirety of the month over my drives to work and back, and I really liked it. This one just continues the story from the first book, so I can't really tell you much about it other than to say that it's very excellently written. There's a lot of spice in it. There's Prince Wrath, Prince Pride, Prince Greed, Prince Gluttony, all of those people, and this one was very interesting and very interesting to listen to. I think the characters just feel so real. Although it was a little bit annoying at times, I felt like it redeemed itself in the good parts of it, and so therefore I am going to continue on with the rest of the series. I only have Kingdom of the Fear left, so I will probably finish that one at some point for the series I'm in the middle of videos, and I'm really enjoying the series. It reads very, very quickly, and it's very small. I think the books are like 300-ish pages, around that ballpark, and so they're very easy to read. This one is a romantasy, as is the first one, and I really liked it, and I recommend it because it's so easy to read, and the world building is so well done, but not confusing. And I will say the same about the next book that I read, which is the only 5-star read I have of this month, which is Phantasma, part of the Wicked Game series by Kaylee Smith. I finally read Phantasma, guys. I finally read Phantasma, and it was fantastic. Yeah, You know how there's these certain books that get you at the right time in the right place? This one was that for me. It really reached me at the right time, at the right place. It was so beautifully done. It was so good. It was everything that I wanted and more. I kept hearing about it here and there, and I wanted to read it, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out a video to incorporate it into, and I really wanted to read it for a video because I wanted to get my reactions on camera because I really want to talk about it with everybody. And so when I did find a video that I could film it for, I immediately read it, and it was my only 5-star read of the month, and I really loved it. I really loved it. It follows the story of this girl who, again, loses her mother. Her mother passes away, and she gets all of her mother's powers because she's a not a seer. I don't remember the exact thing she was, but I will insert it somewhere on the screen. She inherits her mother's powers and she lives in this manor with her sister, and the manor is getting foreclosed by the bank because the mother hasn't been paying the payments, and so the sister wants to help and she goes to join Phantasma, which is a trials games situation. In my head, it's so vivid and so clear, and so to go find her sister, she goes and joins Phantasma, and she has to win through the 9 levels of hell, and she has a trial for every level. I want to reread this book so badly. I finished it and I immediately wanted to go and reread it. It's so good, so entertaining, so attention grabbing, like so well written. It's so fascinating and so vibey and so gothic, and the main character deals with OCD, and the OCD is written about so well to the point where you just can't help but feel for the main character and feel for everything that she's going through. And it just seems like the hardest time that she's going through, trying to not do these compulsions in like a life or death situation where she's like almost dying and her voice in her head tells her like, you have to knock on this thing 3 times or you're gonna die. I really genuinely enjoyed it from the bottom of my heart. It felt like I was back where I felt like I was reading some of my favorite fantasy series again for the first time, and I just really enjoyed it, and I definitely recommend it. And 5 stars, the only 5-star, and it's a 5-star worthy. With that being said, that is the end of my wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoyed most of the books that I read this month, other than the books that really pissed me off. I think I had a pretty good reading month. I'm not reading anything right now either. I just finished Phantasma like 2 days ago, and I haven't been able to pick up anything and actually stick to it. I do plan on filming another video at some point, and so therefore I'll probably pick up a book for that, but I'm not sure what I want to film or what I'm going to be filming. If you have any ideas, let me know down below. If there's anything you would like to see or any books you would like me to read, then I will make that happen for you. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts and opinions are on them. Let me know if you have a favorite book that you read this month, and let me know if there's any books you would like to read next month, because I obviously have a list of all the things that are getting released. I believe I will be reading Rebel Witch at some point this month, and I'm so excited for that. You have no idea. I will also be reading First Time Caller, and the new Hunger Games book is coming out this month, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very excited. There's a couple of books that I am really excited to read that I will be getting from my library. Support your local libraries because they're pretty bomb and they save you a lot of money. That is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have the very best day. Treat yourself to something nice, and I'll see you guys again next week with another video. Goodbye.